Is new today, beginning its own cycle of waxing and waning. We live and move among these cycles of moon and sun. This means that this evening is the beginning of Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. Shana Tova to our Jewish friends within this community and beyond it. May you be sealed for a good year ahead. Whoever you are, quien quiera que seas, whomever you love, a quien ames, however you arrive today in body or mind or spirit, whether you're joining us in person or online, wherever you are in your spiritual journey, donde quiera que estés en tu viaje, you are welcome here. Bienvenidos aquí. If it is your first time or your 500th time, you are welcome here, and we are glad that you are here. We will honor the equinox and the turning of the year by greeting the four directions and create our sacred space together. We begin, Spirit of the East, Spirit of air, of morning and springtime, be with us as the sun rises in times of beginning, in times of planting. Inspire us with the fresh breath of inspiration and creativity as we go forth into new adventures. Spirit of the South, Spirit of fire, of noontime and summer, be with us through the heat of the day and help us to be ever growing. Warm us with strength, courage, and energy for the work that awaits us. Spirit of the West, Spirit of water, of evening and of autumn, be with us as the sun sets and help us to enjoy a rich harvest. Flow through us with a cooling, healing quietness and bring us peace. Spirit of the North, Spirit of earth, of nighttime and winter, be with us in the darkness of rest. Gift us with manifestation and abundance. Ground us in the wisdom of the changing seasons as we celebrate the spiraling journey of our lives. Come and let us worship together.
Good morning. My name is Terry Grimm, and I'm your worship associate today, and my pronouns are she and her. Chris Rubley, who's just returning back from her time in Canada, will light our chalice for us. We light this chalice in honor of enoughness. In the United States today, the top 10% of earners hold nearly 2/3 of the nation's wealth, while the bottom half of our neighbors share only about 2.5%. Recently, the Tesla board approved a $1 trillion pay package for Elon Musk. And for those that are having trouble understanding what that means, if you put it in perspective, if you spent $1,000 every hour without ever stopping for sleep or anything else, it would take more than 114,000 years to spend $1 trillion. Or if Elon Musk lived another 50 years, he would need to spend about $20 billion in each of those years. Enoughness looks different for each of us. For most, enough means simply having shelter, food, health care, and a little safety net to face life's uncertainties. As Mahatma Gandhi reminds us, the world has enough for everyone's need, but not enough for everyone's greed. Please rise as you are able to sing hymn number 44, We Sing of Golden Mornings.
Street.
covenant is not a definition of a relationship. It is the framework for our relating. The task of this covenant is to take responsibility for the freedom we espouse. We know that we are interconnected and that what we do creates ripples of hope or despair, of affirmation or negation. What we do with and for one another is powerful beyond our imagining. The words of Lisa Ward. Please join me in saying our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship. Thus do we covenant with one another.
As we enter our time of prayer and meditation and lighting of candles, we begin by lighting our red candle of community, a reminder that we are part of a greater whole, here in this space and in radiating circles outward through our neighborhood, our nation, and the world. We remember that we are bound together in community. We also light our white candle of peace, recommitting ourselves week after week to the proposition that all people deserve a place of safety, a place where they can thrive. I know, I'm watching it very closely now. There we go. A place where they can build a world that is more just, more free, and where they can build beloved community. Peace and community bound together. We come into this place carrying all of our own needs and longings and hopes and joys, all of the things that make up the tapestry of our lives. Bring any and all of those things forward and light a candle, and we will witness you, we will witness the candle, and we will hold you for a time. Please raise your hand if you need a candle brought to you, and come forward as you are moved. All these flames, these glimmers from our own spirits come together to form a whole, a place where we can bear witness to each other and hold one another in hope and in wonder. I have an equinox meditation from Lori Gorgaslavan for us. Pause. Balanced in the center between the longest and shortest days. A gold leaf is held suspended by the delicate green needles on an evergreen tree. Equinox. The wheel of the year turns and turns again. The air cools, days shorten, the sun seems to weaken, barely clearing the horizon after rising before beginning its descent. This is our opportunity now to pause. Balanced, breathing in, breathing out, knowing this present moment. This present moment is all we're guaranteed. Like the sun moving toward the shortest day, each moment arises and is gone before we know it. This is the time to pause and consider as we enter the season of contemplation, of increasing darkness, of lying fallow, of dormancy. This is the season of letting go, of lightening burdens, of preparing for a long period of being still, going deep. Pause and consider. Binaries, light and dark, hot and cold, chaos and order, neither extreme is inherently good or bad. It's all a matter of balance, of honoring the spectrum for which binaries mark the endpoints. Today is the midpoint between summer and winter solstice, a time to seek balance and be free. Blessed be and amen. Our prayer and song is number 352, Find a Stillness. Please remain seated.
Good morning. My name is Gloria Miller, and I am the Religious Education Director for Bay Area Unitarian Universalist Church. My pronouns are she, her. Today's tale for all ages is entitled The Table Where the Rich People Sit. Author is Bird Baylor, and the illustrator is Peter Parnell. If you could see us sitting here at our old scratched up homemade kitchen table, you'd know that we are not rich. But my father's trying to tell us that we are. Doesn't he notice my worn-out shoes, or that my little brother has patches on the pants that he wears to first grade? And why does he think that old rattletrap truck is parked by our door? You can't fool me, I said. We're poor. Would rich people sit at a table like this? My mother sort of pats the table and she says, well, we're rich and we sit here every day. Sometimes I think I'm the only one in my whole family who's really sensible. Maybe I should mention that my parents made this table out of lumber somebody else threw away. They even had a celebration when they finished it. Understand, I like this table fine, and all I'm saying is, you can tell it didn't come from a furniture store. It just doesn't look like a table where rich people would sit. But my mother thinks if all the rulers of the world could get together at a friendly wooden table in somebody's kitchen, that would solve all their arguments in half the time. And my father says it wouldn't hurt to have a lot of cookies piled up on a nice blue plate that everyone could reach without asking. But tonight it's our kitchen, and it's our argument, and it's our family meeting, and our very spicy ginger cookies are piled on my mother's one good blue flowered plate, exactly in the center of the table. I'm the one who called the meeting, and the subject is money. And I say we don't have enough of it. I tell my parents they should both get better jobs so we can buy a lot of nice new things. And I tell them I look worse than anyone in school. I hate to bring this up, I say, but it would help if you both had a little more ambition. They look surprised. You can see they never think about the things that we need. Right here, I might as well admit that my parents have some strange ideas about working. They think the only jobs worth having are jobs outdoors. And they want cliffs or canyons or deserts or mountains around them wherever they work. They even want a good view of the sky. And they always work together. And their favorite thing is panning gold, piling us into that beat-up truck and heading for the rocky desert hills or back in some narrow mountain gully. They love to walk the wide arroyos and the dry stream beds. They used to tell us the truck just knew which roads to take, and that coyotes showed them where to look for gold. But I never believed it. And after a month or two out there, they always had a little bit of gold to sell, but you can tell it never made them rich. And as far as I can see, it was just an excuse to camp in some beautiful wild place. They don't mind planting fields of sweet corn. They like to pick chili and squash and tomatoes. They'll put up strong fences and train wild young horses. But they say they can't stand to be cooped up indoors. So now, of course, my dad is asking, how many people are as lucky as we are? But I've called this meeting, and I say, I bet you could make more money working in a building somewhere in town. Remember, our number one rule, he said, we have to see the sky. Well, you could look through a window, I say, but they won't even think about it. Do you see what I mean about being the sensible one? Finally, my mother says, all right, mountain girl, we're going to explain how we figure out money. You be the bookkeeper. She hands us each a pencil and some yellow paper. She gives some to my little brother, too, though he's just going to sit there pretending to write when we write, or he'll draw people dancing in the sky. And by the way, my name's not really Mountain Girl. They call me that because I was born in a cabin on the side of a mountain where they were looking for gold one summer. They say it was the most beautiful, magical place that they had ever climbed. And maybe it was, but you know how those two exaggerate. Anyway, they wanted my first sight to be that mountainside, so they held me up outdoors in the sunrise when I was just about 8 minutes old. The truth is, I still like sunshine quite a lot. No wonder I had to call this meeting about money. Can you believe my father is sitting here looking me straight in the eye and he's saying, "Mountain girl, I thought you knew how rich we were." I say, "Well, we can't get very far in this discussion if you won't even admit that we're poor." "I'll prove it to you right now," he says. "Let's make a list of the money that we earn in a year." "How much is that?" I ask. "I'll write it down." But he says, "Oh, not so fast. We have a lot of things to think about before we add them up." "What kinds of things?" My mother says, "Well, we don't just take our pay in cash, you know. We have a special plan, so we get paid in sunsets too, and in having time to hike around the canyon and look for eagle nests." But I say, "Can't you give me one single number to write down on this paper?" So we start with $20,000. That's how much my father says it's worth to him to work outdoors where he can see the sky all day and feel the wind and smell the rain an hour before it's really raining. He says it's worth that much to be where, if he feels like singing, he can sing out loud and no one will mind. So I've just written 20,000. When my mother says, "Well, you better make that 30,000 because it's worth at least another 10 to hear the coyotes howling in the hills." So I write 30,000. And then she remembers they like to see long distances and faraway mountains that change color 20 times a day. "That's worth another 5,000 to me," she says. I'm not surprised because my mother claims to be an expert on mountain shadows in the desert. She says she can tell time by the way those colors change from dawn to dark. So I scratch out what I had and I write $35,000. Then my father thinks of something else. When a cactus blooms, you should be there to watch it because it might be a color you won't see again any other day of your life. How much can you say that color is worth? 50 cents, my brother asks. But they decide on another 5,000. So now I write $40,000. But I'd forgotten how much my father likes to make bird sounds. He can copy any bird, but he's best at the white-winged doves, the ravens, the red-tailed hawks, and the quail. And he's good at eagles, too, and great horned owls. So, of course, he has to add another 10,000 for having both day birds and night birds around us. I cross out what I had, and I write 50,000. Now my mother says, "Let's see what our mountain girl is worth to us." I'm beginning to catch on to their kind of thinking. So I suggest that maybe I'm worth $10,000, even though my little brother's begun to laugh. "Don't underestimate yourself," my father said. "Remember all those good lists that you make for us?" He's right, I do. I made a list of the best books that we can read, a list of all the ones that we should read again. I made a list of all the animals that all of us have seen and the ones that we want to see again, out in the wild, not in a zoo. Mine is a mountain lion. I've dreamed of him 4 times, and I've already seen his track. And my father chose a grizzly bear, and my mother wants to see a wolf. And my brother can't decide between a dolphin or a whale. I remember everyone because I make the lists. And they end up deciding I'm worth about $1 million. I say, I don't think I am, but I write it anyways. And in fact, it turns out every one of us is worth $1 million. So now we have $4,050,000. And then I realize I want to add $5,000 myself for the pleasure that I have wandering in the open country, alone and free as a lizard. They say, well, that's certainly worth $5,000. So $4,055,000. Then my brother says, put $7 more for all the nights we get to sleep out under the stars. We say $7 isn't enough, and we talk him into $5,000. And now my paper says $4,060,000, and we haven't even started counting the cash. To tell the truth, the cash part doesn't seem to matter anymore. I suggest it shouldn't even be on a list of our kind of riches. And so the meeting is over, and the rest of them go outside to see the new sliver of moon. But I'm still sitting here at our nice homemade kitchen table with one cookie left on my mother's good blue flowered plate, and I'm writing this book about us. I kind of pat the table, and I'm glad it's ours. In fact, I think the title of my book is going to be The Table Where the Rich People Sit. Our keeper of the flame is Remy Eck.
Our responsive reading today is number 604 in the back of the gray hymnal. Number 604, A Vessel So Sacred by Lao Tse. Please join in with me on the italicized text. Those who would take over the earth and shape it to their will never, I notice, succeed. The earth is like a vessel so sacred that at the mere approach of the profane, it is marred. And when they reach out their fingers, it is gone. For a time in the world, some force themselves ahead, and some are left behind. For a time in the world, some make a great noise, and some are held silent. For a time in the world, some are puffed fat, and some are kept hungry. For a time in the world, some push aboard, and some are tipped out. At no time in the world will one who is sane overreach, overspend, overrate.
Another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. Time grabs you by the wrist, directs you where to go. So make the best of this test and don't ask why. It's not a question but a lesson learned in time. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life. So take the photographs and still frames in your mind. Hang it on a shelf in good health and good time. Tattoos and memories and dead skin on trial. For what it's worth, it was worth all the while. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life. right. I hope you had the time of your life. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life.
What a beautiful song. Thank you. And now some words from Henry David Thoreau. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and to see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. I did not wish to live what was not life. Living is so dear, nor did I wish to practice resignation unless it was quite necessary. I wanted to live deep and suck all of the marrow of life, to live so sturdily and Spartan-like as to put to rout all that was not life, to cut a broad swatch and shave close, to drive life into a corner and reduce it to its lowest turns, and if it proved to be mean, why then to get the whole and genuine meanness out of it, and publish its meanness to the world, or if it were sublime, to know by experience and to be able to give a true account of it. The nation lives too fast. Men think that it is essential that the nation have commerce and export ice and talk through a telegraph and ride 30 miles an hour. If we do not get out sleepers and forge rails and devote days and nights to the work, but go to tinkering upon our lives to improve them, who will build the railroads? And if railroads are not built, how shall we get to heaven in season? But if we stay at home and mind our business, who will want railroads? We do not ride on the railroad, it rides upon us.
Multiple times in Walden, Thoreau will shout, "Simplicity, simplicity, simplicity." And his summons to us remains as urgent as it did in his own time. We still struggle with questions of what is enough and how to simplify. What do we actually need? What is merely filling our lives with noise? If we'd figured it out by now, Marie Kondo would not have her enormous empire. There would not be infinite guides on how to organize our overstuffed closets. There wouldn't be so many ways to spend money to reset our living spaces and our lives. Because the hunger for balance is real. And I do need to preface this by saying this is not one of those sermons coming to you from a place of, I've figured all of this out. I was working on this sermon surrounded by the stacks of books that don't fit on the arty double-stacked bookshelves. My closet's tidy, the bookshelves are not, and I probably have too many vinyl records. I'm not coming to you from a place of minimalism. And on the ecological angle, I'm not coming from a pristine place either. I'm good at turning the lights off, but I really hate being hot. I drive when I could probably bike. Again, I'm not coming from a place of purity here. And that's partly my point, is that there is no place of purity. Living as a person in 2025 in the United States of America means we have to make infinite decisions and compromises just to get through the day. The systems we live under limit our capacity as individuals to make this choice. Are we going to spend money today or time? Are we going to prioritize this issue or that issue? And it is an exhausting way to live. And from the perspective of an individual, that's just the way it is, because until the system changes, the menu of options available is both overwhelming and horribly limited. Those of us who read through in high school probably took away this notion of him wandering off into the wilderness to escape humanity, rejecting the whole system entirely. And then maybe we found out who fed him and who did his laundry, and we blew him off, which is pretty reasonable if you think his project actually was to go off into the wilderness. But that wasn't actually what he was trying to do. Rereading bits of Walden with more historical knowledge and perspective than I had at 16 or whenever they assigned it to me in school, I was struck by a few different things. First, Walden Pond is not wilderness. People live there. People have lived there for a long time. Thoreau isn't fleeing people, he's moving out of Concord. He's just ditching downtown Houston for some sort of rural exurb, and he knows this. He's very clear about this. And he doesn't want to do everything himself. He's not rejecting interdependence, he's rejecting really particular ways of living, particular products and services. So Walden was published in 1854, and it covers the years 1845 to 1847. And while he was at Walden Pond, he was actually writing about his previous adventure, which was a river journey he had taken with his brother up the Concord and Merrimack rivers. And his work is full of many digressions, philosophical and naturalistic, but he's also describing their journey along these farms and woods and the plentiful fish that fill the rivers. And then he describes the industrial changes human beings have made. He writes, "The Merrimack reaches the sea, hurried down rapids, down numerous falls without long delay. It's navigable for vessels of burden for about 20 miles, for canal boats as far as Concord in New Hampshire, 75 miles from its mouth, smaller boats to Plymouth, 113 miles. A small steamboat once plied between Lowell and Nashua before the railroad was built. Unfitted to some extent for the purposes of commerce by the sandbar at its mouth, see how the river was devoted from the first to the service of manufactures. Standing at its mouth, look up its sparkling stream to the source, a silver cascade from the White Mountains to the sea. And behold a city on each successive plateau, a busy colony of human beaver around every fall. Not to mention Newburyport and Haverhill, Lawrence and Lowell and Nashua and Manchester and Concord gleaming one above the other. When at length it has escaped from the last of the factories, it has a level passage to the sea. Instead of the scream of a fish hawk scaring the fishes, is heard the whistle of the steam engine arousing a country to its progress." So for those of you who may not be familiar with the geography, the place where the Concord meets the Merrimack is Lowell. It's a town just on the Massachusetts side of the New Hampshire border. The Lowell mills recruited young women to fill them. They offered decent enough wages for the time and some educational opportunities too. They understood that the women were just there to work briefly between childhood and marriage or before appropriate careers like teaching. But even decent pay for the era was pretty bad, and even better job conditions than the other mills were pretty awful job conditions, and so the women went on strike repeatedly in 1834, in 1836. In 1845, just as Thoreau was settling into Walden, the Lowell Mill Girls formed the Lowell Female Labor Reform Association, the first American union for working women. So when Thoreau is stepping away from the world of business, leaving the downtown scene for something more rural, he's also rejecting businesses that run off the sweat of the poor. Moreover, the mills in Lowell and all up and down all the rivers in New England, the ones making cotton textiles, that cotton came from the southern states, from slave labor. So all this wealth happening in busy New England downtowns, it's all connected somehow or other to the twin realities of slavery and exploitative wage labor. Manufacturing, shipping, the rails, all these industries have a tainted foundation. And even a gentleman who did not participate in trade required someone else to work his land and grow his food and needed money to come from somewhere. It wasn't really possible to be part of the Concord literati without somehow living off the labor of others. So when Thoreau is doing an experiment, it's not about being fully independent of all other people, it's about stepping away from this industrial economy. Hence his mother bringing him meals and doing his laundry, because that is, after all, totally normal for the women of the household to do. At least for people like this. Thoreau's not the only person in this time period trying out living experiments. Bronson Alcott is probably best known to all of us today as being the dad of Louisa May Alcott. He had just dragged his family out to a farm a few years prior for an experiment in simple living. He named the farm Fruitlands. You can go visit it today. He refused to use cotton textiles due to the slavery and labor connection. He also refused to use wool because using animal products or animal labor was an act of theft, which meant that the Alcott family shivered through a New England winter in linen. They lived off apples and bread because they didn't have anything to help them plow rocky New England soil. This was a disaster from start to finish, and it failed, and the Alcotts returned to Concord much to the relief of the children, and indeed, they often visited Thoreau when he was at Walden Pond. Thoreau and Emerson had not joined Fruitlands. They took one look at that and saw the disaster coming. They understood that none of them were really great farmers and this wasn't going to go well. But they did talk about what they were learning, and they talked to each other a lot about how to live in these times that they found themselves. Most of our transcendentalist forebears were engaged in some kind of experimental lifestyle, trying to disentangle themselves from aspects of society they found completely untenable. They were all abolitionists. Most of them were against the industrial exploitation of labor and of natural resources, and they saw all of this as modes of living that were not real life, because real life was relationship. Thoreau, wishing to live deliberately, is less about the majesty of being close to the land or the dignity of doing one's own work. It's more about attempting to live without causing harm to the world. Thoreau's simplicity is an attempt to live a more just life with more interdependence and relationality, not less. The question Thoreau is asking is less, how can I be a minimalist and a purist, and more, what is enough? What do I actually need or not need, want or not want? Because after all, we human beings do an awful lot of things we don't want or need to do, to acquire things we don't want or need, because we're very embedded in systems that tell us what we should want and need. And those systems rely on the exploitation of others and of the earth itself to make those things possible. And so we too need to ask ourselves, what is enough? There is a movement that began in Europe, and the French word is decroissance. And the image the French word implies is not withering or fading or shrinking down to nothing. It's a river returning to its banks after a flood. The English translation, degrowth, loses a lot of that sense of balance. That's the point, is balance being restored after a time of imbalance. As the degrowth movement has taken on global perspective, it has articulated an awareness that for some parts of the world, economic growth would actually be the method of balance. It's also brought in perspectives on natural resources and global labor and resource patterns, acknowledging how much growth, industrial growth in the global north, was fueled by extraction from the global south. The degrowth movement is less about shrinking all economies forever and more about rebalancing among the multiple factors of ecology, international relations, labor, and, yes, quality of life for everyone. The degrowth umbrella covers a variety of projects and movements that are focused on interdependent relationships with more democracy and mutuality. relationships with our neighbors, relationships with the land, with workers, and with the global south. The modern degrowth movement is primarily anti-capitalist. It argues that a focus on perpetual growth for its own sake has not only led to an exploitation of labor, but also exploitation of resources and that distortion of international relations. There are many factions in the degrowth movement, and they prefer a wild variety of governments, but the central critique, regardless of where we stand on the politics of governance, is one we would do well to heed. The world is out of balance, and this imbalance is completely unsustainable. Today is Sunday, honoring the profusion of solar movements and progress. But I know that if I were to preach today about solar power or recycling, I would be preaching very much to the choir. This particular congregation has done a lot of work to green this specific building, and I know that many of us are making individual choices every day to green our lives. So I'm here to be a downer instead and say that this is insufficient, as many of our individual choices often are. We know this. As any Houstonian knows, any attempt to widen the Katy Freeway results in worse traffic on the Katy Freeway. Every added lane conjures more cars than there were in each lane before, increasing the muddle. This is a real phenomenon, it's a real thing. It's an if you build it, they will come. There's something in us that is compelled to grow and use, even if we know it's a problem. Because the world we live in tells us this is how it ought to be, but also because there's not really that many options if you want to get to Katy from here. And so far, the increase in solar power has resulted in an increase in more usage of power. It feels okay to use more power because it's solar. There have been major successes. The UK shut down its last coal plant. Here in the US, we are reopening coal plants to generate more and more power to feed the rising demand. A lot of this is technological and computing, but a lot of it is just the human desire to keep things the way they are and keep doing more and more and more. Moreover, there are real concerns about the rare earth metals required to create renewable energy infrastructure, especially the labor conditions of those who mine and make those things, the people who make our devices, the shipping, the garbage that's generated, et cetera, et cetera. And so in many ways, this is the classic example of thinking the technical solution can solve what's actually a much bigger systemic problem. And I know it's easy to look at that and think, well, I guess we've got to go build a cabin in the woods and grow our own beans. I don't know who's going to do our laundry. And some people do this. Some people do step away from the entire economy, and good for them truly, but that's not me. And for the rest of us, I have some suggestions, not for specific actions, but for ways of thinking as we move through the world, as we make all those individual choices, and especially as we vote, as we advocate, as we consider where to put our time and our energy. What does the world look like when the river returns to its banks? What is enough? Does the solution to a particular problem widen the river's impact or pull it back? Does a product or a method rely on using more of the world's resources or on exploitative labor practices? Or does it provide real economic opportunity and reuse materials already in circulation? The various folks in the degrowth movement don't have clear answers, but they're pretty clear on the lens they want to use as they sort through their answers. And part of the problem is that the movement includes so many different people working on so many different projects. Someone once described to me, it's basically a grab bag. They just hand you a whole bag, and it's not a system. It's a whole bunch of experiments to try to figure out new ways of living. This other angle, this idea that it's not just ecology, not just labor, not just democracy, but that it's a whole, an integrated view of the world grounded in relationship and mutuality. It sounds an awful lot like beloved community to me, the big picture view that contains 1,000 ways of being. Simplify, simplify, and the river returning to its banks, beloved community. There are many ways to say it, but in the end, the question and the goal are the same. How do we live in the world as it is right now, and yet also keep it moving to a better tomorrow? How are we woven into the webs of our relationships? How do we unweave the ones that do not serve love and justice and reweave the ones that do? How do we understand and accept that our individual personal choices are never going to be enough because we cannot fully remove ourselves from the systems that shape our choices? But how can we also remember that our individual choices matter, that they accumulate, that they build on each other piece by piece? I think we remember there is always the possibility that systemic change and individual choice will meet in the middle, because they've done it before in various times and places throughout our history. Our choices do matter, so long as we're acting from that place of love and justice and committing to returning the course of our river. Amen, and may it be so. Now is the moment where we reflect on abundance in our own lives and enoughness. And when we ask, what is enough for this community as a whole to thrive and survive? And so please consider the abundance in your life. Consider what you can give to support this church and the work that it does. Give as generously as you are able, and it will be received with gratitude.
Monuments, we'll build us some temples, build us some castles.
Please join me in blessing the offering. This gift from the abundance of my life blesses me, our ministries, and the world. Thank you. There are many ways in which our community lives out our mission to change lives and heal the world. Here are just a few of those ways. Fall is always such a busy time in our church, so stay tuned for events. We're going to start with Jane Ebone talking about the blood drive.
Hi there. Be a hero. Donate blood. We're going to be having the bus come on Sunday, October 19th. If you can, please see me or Joss, and we would be happy to sign you up.
Thanks. Okay. For years, our religious education ministry team, under the leadership of Brenda Cockrell, has hosted the Fall Festival with proceeds benefiting UNICEF. This year's festival is on Sunday, October 26th. In honor of Brenda's legacy, we're inviting everyone to help BAUUC donate generously to UNICEF. To do that, we're seeking donations and sponsorships for things like the moonwalk, water slide, hayride, trailer, dunking booth, and briskets for our barbecue plates. You can donate online through the BAUUC website. Just click the PayPal button and choose Fall Festival. If you'd like, you can note a specific item you're sponsoring, and we'll post that at the attraction. And we'll also have a cake auction and pumpkin carving contest, so start thinking about your entries. The more creative contributions, the more fun. Also, starting Monday, October 6th, we're offering an 8-week grief workshop at 3:30 in the church library. The church is providing the workbook, Navigating Grief, for $9, with financial assistance available if needed. Space is limited to 10, and we need RSVPs right away so books can be ordered. Use the QR code on the link in the weekly email to sign up, or it's right there. This Wednesday, September 24th, turn your evening into a showdown of brain power and laughs at our team trivia night. It starts at 7 o'clock. Teams will be formed at random, prizes go to the winners, and it's completely free. Everyone's welcome. Come early for Wednesday night dinner at 5:45 and Vespers at 6:30, and then team trivia night. On Saturday, September 27th, come by Cockrell Hall to enjoy the artwork of local artist Pam Hatch and her students, on display all month. Meet the artist at a reception that afternoon from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Pam is known for her pastel and mixed media paintings and also teaches at Upper Bay Frame and Gallery in League City. We hope you'll stop by. Also on Saturday, September 27th, our young adults will gather at 7 o'clock in Cockrell Hall. Bring your favorite games, bring a friend, and join in for a night of fun and laughter. And next Sunday, please plan to stay after the service for our quarterly congressional meeting. You'll hear updates from several ministry teams, including Building and Grounds, with news about the road project. Whoa. Also next Sunday, the Clear Lake small group of PFLAG will meet in the sanctuary at 2 o'clock. This is a safe and welcoming space that helps families stay united, fosters understanding, and embraces our gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and questioning family members. And today, after the service, please join us in Cockrell Hall for coffee, light snacks, and time together. And if you'd like to donate snacks or help them set them out in the future, there's a sign-up sheet in Cockrell Hall. Let's enjoy some fellowship together. And as a reminder, the Buddhist meditation meets at 3:30 instead of 4 o'clock during September and part of October. So check the weekly calendar for the exact dates. And if you're exhausted just listening to everything that's happening, the good news is that it's printed in our weekly newsletter and also in your order of service, so there's lots of stuff happening. But if you're new to BAUC and want to stay in the loop, sign up for the weekly email by scanning the QR code on the screen. It's the best way to keep up with everything happening here, so you don't have to listen to everything that was just said and remember it. Okay, our closing song is number 121, We'll Build a Land. Stand if you're willing and able.
Do not be daunted by the many tasks before us, or even by the knowledge that our individual choices might not make all the difference we hope they might. Just trust that there's a lot of us, and we're all doing the work, and that it will build up over time and become the land we wish it to be. Blessings, go in peace, paz.